Hello, everyone. We want to welcome you to our Church at Home online experience. And whether you're brand new, and if you are, or you're new to this channel or to our website, we want to welcome you. So glad you're here. And if you've been here many times and you're a part of our church family, we want to welcome you too. We miss seeing people. We miss seeing you. My name is Trevor. I'm the lead pastor here at Life Church, and in our church we are striving to love God, love others, and love life. And today's service is actually not even going to be a service. We're not going to be doing our typical worship and announcements and preaching. Today we get the opportunity to hear Darryl and Patty Jones' story. We want to do life stories and share about what God is doing in people's lives, real people from our community. And so here is their story of what God has done in their life. This is not a story of somewhere in another country, but in Canada, in Nanaimo, and how God is moving. I know that you're going to be blessed by this story because testimonies build faith. They inspire faith. And so I believe that your faith will be built up today. You'll be inspired hearing what God has done. And this is a challenging, a difficult story to hear. You will feel their heart and their emotions in this story, but I'm so excited for you to hear this.
Hello, Life Church. I'm so excited to be, introducing to some of you, but most of you know our friends, Darryl and Patty Jones. They are members of our church and are part of the Life Church community. They have a son named Dawson, and I'm so glad that they're part of our church. And they're going to be sharing their story with you today. So Darryl and Patty's story begins when they lived up north in the Queen Charlotte Islands. Patty was a nurse at that time. She still is today. And at that time, Darryl was logging. And they were married for just a short period of time. And they were preparing for their very first baby. And at that time, they had decided to come down to Vancouver Island for the birth of their baby girl. Just because the hospital situation was a little bit better down here, and they also had family here. And so this is where their story begins. Darryl and Patty, if you can tell us what it was like when you brought your baby girl, Haley, into this world.
We had come to Nanaimo to deliver our baby, and everything in my pregnancy was great, and we were looking forward to welcoming our baby, and everything kind of changed though when we went to go deliver. They had to induce my labor to get things going, and then that's when they noticed there was some problems and baby was not doing well, and so they said we need to do an emergency C-section. And when Haley was born, I remember the first thing, she was just so white, and she was having a hard time breathing, and she was rushed to Victoria General Hospital. Then I was taken there, and Darryl came afterwards, and what we found out was that she had I and her had a condition where it was called fetal maternal hemorrhage, and she was losing blood, but it was coming back into my system. No one knew that there was real issues until the last minute, and unfortunately she had lost a substantial amount, and it caused massive brain damage and seizures and multiple problems. And so they put her on life support, and within 2 days we had to make the decision of whether or not we're going to, we had to make the decision if we were going to take her off life support, because she wasn't able to support breathing on her own at all, and I knew there was no way she could survive. And so we made that choice to take her off life support, and we got to finally hold her on that moment. And we had all of our family with us. We had our pastor and wife with us, and it's a bit of a blur, but we just were, they had a little special room in the neonatal intensive care unit where you can just have some quiet time, and we all crowded in there, and we just kind of were saying our goodbyes, or we were just in the moment. And kind of time passed, and Haley was just hanging out, you know, just with us, and we weren't sure what was going on, and the nurses would come back and check on her. And then they started to question, like, okay, what's going on here? She's actually like breathing on her own, like things seem to be okay.
Yeah.
And they took her and started hooking up to monitors, and sure enough, Haley was breathing on her own.
Wow.
Even though just like hours
Ago,
before,
yeah.
it was like there's no way she can breathe on her own.
It was a miracle.
It was an absolute miracle. And so we were in hospital for 2 weeks, and during that time, I'll let you share about how bad things were. You know, once she started to breathe on her own, there was still multiple obstacles while we were there.
Yeah.
About the
Yes, she was basically, again, the cycling, which is a form of seizuring, and they were struggling with getting them under control, and nothing was working, and we had been just not knowing what to do. We had gone to bed that night, and while we were sleeping, we got woke up, and God started speaking to our heart about surrender and giving her to Him. And we just felt like that was the time that we needed just to let go and give her to Jesus. And we just said, whatever plan you have for her life, God, we trust you. We believe that you have a special plan. You rescued her from this moment. She's breathing. It's because of you that she's breathing. And we don't understand everything you're doing, but we're believing that you have a plan and a purpose. And so it was at that moment that there was another amazing miracle. And we had gone back to sleep, went back into the neonatal intensive care unit that next morning, and that's when they told us that she had a miracle, that the seizure stopped.
Wow.
And we knew it was Him. We knew it was God that did that for us. So yeah. So
Awesome.
yeah.
it wasn't an easy decision, because I think in that moment you're surrendering, but you're not knowing, is things going to work out good, or are things are going to be working out bad? You're literally, He's just asking us to surrender, not knowing. And so it sounds so easy when we say it, but it certainly
not.
wasn't in
It
the
wasn't.
moment,
Yeah.
because it's like, I don't know what's going to happen. And but it was the start of our journey in saying yes, and I surrender, and I'm making a choice
To follow you no matter
to
what.
just
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
just say, okay, God, I don't understand, or I need your help.
Yeah.
And I know that He didn't He didn't abandon us. He didn't, like, He was right there with us. And so it was just us turning to Him and saying,
Yeah. Acknowledging,
Help.
really acknowledging that we needed Him and that we trusted,
Yeah.
and we're making that choice. We were choosing to, no matter what.
Yeah.
And and it made an incredible difference in the journey that we ended up going through with her.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what was cool was sometimes, like, there was doctors that were speaking negative stuff about what our life would what the future would hold because of how bad things looked. But we also had a cool experience about a mom that was able to come to the hospital and share her story with her child that had special needs and kind of speak life, whereas all we were
getting told was death, speaking the negative.
Yeah. And then she came in and she brought, gifts for Haley, even though she didn't know us, and just said, I'm a mom of a kid and I've already walked this journey and I want to tell you the good things.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm sure she had a story of her own because now we know, but she wanted to say,
don't look at all the negative.
There's life. There's wonderful things.
There,
and that was very cool.
Instilled more hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, we knew again God was brought her there for that purpose.
Yeah.
And
So Haley eventually gets released from the hospital, and you guys trek all the way back up north to Queen Charlotte Islands with this new baby.
Yeah.
You're exhausted. You're probably overwhelmed, I can imagine, not knowing what life is going to look like. And you've only been married for a year, which is like...
we haven't even really...
Talk about life just switching.
And I don't know what I was thinking when I said to Patty, we should think about having a family 1 year into marriage. And it's like, well, really? And I'm like, well, I'm 36 and I don't want to wait too long.
Aww.
So
tell me about what life is like when you get back up to Queen Charlotte's.
Well, she was seizure-free for a little while, and then the seizures came back, and they came back with a vengeance. And she was crying night and day. She'd have the seizure and just be distraught. And we didn't have any resources up there. There was nothing. I remember our pastor and his wife knocking on our door one day and realizing our situation and going, let's take her for a walk and give you guys a break. And we could hear her crying all the way down the highway, and it was just... So we tried medications again, and things weren't really working out. And we were home probably, was it 4 months? And we were making a lot of trips to Vancouver, and it was getting pretty costly. And we decided we were down on a routine trip, and coming down island from Port Hardy, and she had another bad seizure. It was really bad. While we were driving, it always happened on a holiday weekend when all the doctors are out of town and you can't book an appointment. It's we got in. I don't know what happened. Do you remember that when we were traveling down?
Yeah, and that's when we knew things were. She was having a hard time, and then when we came down for that appointment and realized she was getting worse, and you made the decision. Yeah,
to move. You weren't going back with her, and I was going back to get her stuff. Yeah.
That we needed to stay closer to proper medical care and have more support medically and family and
your parents being here and
that type of thing. So Darryl
so Patty, you stayed here?
I stayed here to be with her, and then Darryl took up and went back home.
Yeah. And there was miracle after miracle. You could really see God's hand in everything we were doing and the decisions we were making. I didn't have a job. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was a logger for 18 years, and I didn't know anything else. And when we were up on the island, and I'm like, I feel helpless. As a dad, how can I help my daughter and my wife? And I said to Patty, what can I do? Get in the kitchen and start cooking. So little did I know that was going to be a career change from logging to cooking and running a kitchen. I'd never gone to culinary school. And so, I tried to find a job in the industry down here, and I was just getting nowhere. But we saw even our U-Haul van. I picked up the phone, called a U-Haul, and the guy on the other end knew me from Bible college and gave us a really crazy deal. And the church and all the ladies packed up all our stuff. And I went in on one ferry, packed up the van, and went out that night on the same ferry I came in on. It was just such a turnaround. And so we just saw so many little things that came together, knowing that, God he wanted us here in Nanaimo. And
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love how your church just gathered around you and cleaned your house and got you moved out. And Patty, that must have been hard for you, not being able to say goodbye to friends or even much closure for your life up north, right?
Yeah. I think we were pretty much in full gear. You couldn't just stop and
Even think about it.
turn around and think about, like, life was now completely different. So, yeah, I think in retrospect, that's a big part. It's something that still is like is a little hole in our heart, because that's where we thought we were going to live. We could
raise a
envision
family there,
what
and-
our life would look like up there, and then it was upended.
But very quickly. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, the church was
Amazing. And still
amazing.
is.
Even how they, even just simple things, you can tell how they package things. I would throw everything in a garbage bag and we'd move. They like carefully, like lovingly, in really special ways, wraps everything in our house. Like, they spent that time, and that, even though they couldn't talk to us and we couldn't talk to them, that was their way of showing their love and care to us when we were going through all that. So it was pretty
That's
special.
awesome. Darryl, you told me at one point a story about different needles that Haley had to get and how God spoke to you about it. It was
That really broke my heart.
really inspiring, and I'd like you to share that story.
We were still trying to figure out how to get these seizures under control, and we were talking to the doctor and Haley's pediatrician, and they had a ketogenic diet they wanted to put us on that was supposed to help, and then they had another one that it required injections, and not just once a month but daily. And I had been on the ferry. We'd been on the ferry coming back down for a trip, and I was just crying out to God and saying, God, I can't stand the pain she's going through and the suffering she's going through now, and as a father, I can't stand the fact to see her getting pierced every day with these needles and creating more pain, and I was just so distraught about it. And I remember very clearly the Holy Spirit speaking to my heart, and how he said, I watched my son get pierced, and I watched my son carry the pain of many, and I know the pain that you're going through as a father, because my son went through it just as your daughter is going through it, and I'm carrying you through this, and you don't have to do it alone. I'm here to help you through it, and I just the presence of God and the peace that we experienced as he was just reassuring us that we weren't alone in this, that he understood, and really, really impacted us in a really neat way. But yeah, it was hard. It's you don't want to see any more pain. You see that enough of it already, and to inflict more would be just hard.
I love that we serve a God who can meet us where we're at. Right? He understands our pain, and he walks through it with us. And because you understand that God knew what you were going through, you could trust him,
totally
right? Trust him with what was happening.
Yeah, because he could identify, right?
He could totally identify. Yeah, that's a really powerful story. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So then you're settling into Nanaimo.
Yeah.
And life's kind of moving on. What's that like?
We found a church here in town, and that we really connected with. And we're still dealing with issues. Haley wasn't able to have any stimulation. We were basically keeping her in a room in a dark place. Any light or any noise or anything would set her off. We were able to get hooked into the Child Development Center here in Nanaimo, able to connect with BC Children's, and just the networks that were happening were incredible. They were really neat. We went to church one Sunday. We were sitting we were in an old theater, and I can remember sitting up in the back, and this guy walks in, and Dwight Lobson was his name, and he saw us, our 3-year-old little girl, disabled girl, on our lap, and he was just moved, and he walked up to us, and he goes, He goes, "Can I hold your baby?" And we're like, who lets you hold your child? Like someone you don't even know, right?
Yeah.
But I'm like, sure, I guess. And picks her up and holds her, and he goes, "I used to work for the Surrey Leader," and he goes, "and I know how to work with the media." He goes, "I want to do something to help you." He goes, "And what can I do? I want to do something." Well, at that time, we had learned of hyperbaric oxygen therapy.
Yeah.
James Lunny was running at that time in our local riding, and he was trying to promote it in Ottawa and get the government involved in it. And there was a new facility in Coquitlam that had just opened, and James Lunny and Dwight Lobson came with us, and we went over and toured it, and we found out it was expensive. It was $100 an hour, but the results were great, were known to be helpful for people with brain damage. And he said, "I'm going to make this happen." So he rallied everyone in the city. We had car dealerships, we had businesses. It was amazing, the city of Nanaimo and the people that came together, that were one car dealer. The guy did a marathon or something and got pledges, and it was just, we were just blown away. We really saw God's love through the people in the city.
That's
people
awesome.
that didn't even know her, right?
Yeah.
But we're coming together. We ended up raising $20,000. We did hyperbaric. We were hoping Haley would be totally healed again, right?
Yeah.
You're thinking full on walk, talk,
Yeah.
and it didn't happen. So you're getting discouraged, but we saw results.
That's
We
awesome.
saw quality of life.
Yeah.
Seizure free for a year. Haley was able to go to school and
okay.
have, start
preschool.
preschool, right? And
So she could handle more stimulation
yes.
after she had the hyperbaric
Oh yeah.
therapy.
totally.
Night and day.
Really?
It was total
Night and
change.
day.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Changed our entire life.
Yeah,
It changed
it did.
her life.
Hers.
Oh,
We
it
s-
was like a huge relief.
That's
We
really
saw a little
awesome.
girl smiling more and laughing and cooing and like
Moving her legs.
moving her legs and kick. We always knew Haley was happy because she'd lift one arm in the air and start kicking her legs.
Yeah.
That was her happy time, eh?
Yeah.
But just seeing that,
That's
the
amazing.
change in her, it was huge.
And you've told me about her connection with God. Why don't you talk about that? That's really interesting.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. We used to do a home group Bible study in our home, and we would quite often have times of worship. And we always felt like, well, Haley, we should put Haley in her bed. Like she's going to be a distraction to people, and let's put her to bed early on our home group nights. And one night we were worshiping, and we could hear Haley in the background. And the thing about Haley is she couldn't speak, but she was singing. She was singing in her way that she knew how to sing, and she was connecting. And we could tell she was connecting with God in an incredible way. And a lot of times people think kids with cerebral palsy aren't there, that mentally they're not there as a person, but it's not true at all. Even in the state that she was in, she was so much an amazing girl, and she connected with people, and she connected with God in a way that we never dreamed she would. And to the point where we were bringing her out in our home group meeting, and having her just sit with people, and people were being touched by God just with her being there with us. And it was really cool.
That's
It
so
was
awesome.
great because if we could one way soothe her and help her, it'd be like singing or playing music. And so we would do that lots as a family. And so that connection, and it's like your own time, because a lot of times we couldn't go to church. Like it's too much. It was too much to bring her. And so sometimes just being at home and spending time with God in the recliner chair, holding her, that was church, and God met us right there.
Where we were at,
And
I love
It
how
was
his
very
presence just passes barriers,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
It doesn't matter. He
Yeah.
just met you guys where you at.
Totally.
That is so awesome.
yeah.
I'm just thinking, like, as a parent myself, I can't even imagine how frustrating this journey must have been for you guys. But being believers, believing for a miracle too. Like, so as Christians, understanding that, you know, God's given you this daughter, but also believing that he can heal her.
Yes.
So how was that? How was that as a Christian to be like full of faith, but yet still be okay if it doesn't happen? Or maybe is it frustrating that your daughter isn't healed?
Very much
What's
so.
that journey like?
You want to share a little on that?
Yeah, it's something I think it's still a bit of a mystery, or still something I'll always keep turning to God and asking him for help, because he's the only one that can supernaturally change things, right? And I've seen it. I know it as to why he didn't heal her completely, or those are things that
Just don't understand or know.
I don't understand, but it's not something that's going to, or it didn't make me like want to run away or turn my back on him or whatever. I still knew that he had brought her into our life. It was a miracle. He still helped us
through each moment.
Helped us figure out all this new life, this crazy life that we were now living. And I desperately needed him. I don't know how else
we could do it without him.
I don't know.
And to turn our back on him would be suicidal, in the sense that we knew and we were experiencing him carrying us.
Yeah.
And it all came back to that surrendering again, and daily surrendering. But you know, you would get words from people saying that she's going to be healed, and you'd get, you know, people mean well, and they, you know, I believe God's going to heal your daughter, and we're like, we're standing on that promise, and we'll keep standing on that promise till we breathe our last breath, until something happens, or even if it doesn't happen, we're going to believe, because His Word says it, and you know, and it may not be the healing we want or we expect, but we saw healings throughout her life, right? And you know, we would take her to healing meetings and believe that this was going to be the night, right?
Right.
And then when it wasn't, it's like, okay, like for whatever reason, it isn't our time yet, hey, you know, and so it just it really came down to trust.
Yeah.
Surrender and trust all
and
the time.
A choice,
and
a choice that we're going to still
follow,
trust
even
him.
though we don't know.
Yeah.
That's amazing. We all have that choice to make every day, don't we?
Yeah.
In everyday life, no matter what decision we're coming upon, we make that choice to trust.
Yeah.
Trusting God.
Totally do.
So Patty and Darryl, Haley did eventually pass away, and she's completely healed and dancing and talking and being loved on by Jesus.
Amen.
But can you tell us about her passing and how old she was and when that was? Yeah.
Go ahead.
So Haley was 12 when she passed away, and it was somewhat unexpected, because we had tended to end up being in the hospital at certain points in her life, at least 5 times, where she would get really, really sick.
Yeah.
And so I think we just thought this was going to be another like a bad hospitalization. We're going to be in hospital for a long time.
She'd get on antibiotics, and then we'd be going home again. You know, it was kind of the pattern had been for a number of years in her life.
And you had explained to me previously that her condition was palliative, right?
Yes.
Like the doctors had told you that?
Yeah. And just because she dealt with so many issues, and we recognize there's only so much that, you know, the doctors could do, we could do. And so, she was palliative since she was like 4 years old. What that provided for us and for her was wonderful connection with Connect Place, which is a palliative program for kids with special needs. And we got taken care of there. Our son Dawson got taken care of there. Haley got exceptional care.
Just gave us a breakaway
Yeah.
and some respite where they would take her. We'd stay there in a separate room, but be close by, and I just got a rest and a break. It was so amazing. Yeah.
That's awesome.
But what it also did was just having to recognize that that's
Yes.
that's what her kind of life was. It was going to always be like talking about that she's palliative,
Palliative
and
and gonna
every
pass,
time we have to
yeah.
go there, we have got to reevaluate how bad is she, and
Yeah.
and what do you guys want to do for intervention or not for intervention. And then every time we go in hospital, it's always like, oh, this is going to be it. So it was kind of always with that heaviness.
In your heart, in the back of your mind, you're always thinking that, you know, in one side he's thinking this is just another bout of pneumonia we're going to get over, but at the same time you're thinking, is this going to be it? Right? And it's this, you're on this roller coaster
yeah.
each time you go to the hospital, and it was just what life was giving us at that
Yeah.
time. And yeah.
So yeah, this time when she went in, I honestly, I thought that she would turn around, but at one moment in the night, I kind of knew that things were looking bad, and we knew by the next morning that things were not good, and she passed away that night. And what was special for us is when Haley was going to pass away when she was born, I got to hold her
Yeah.
because I thought that was going to be our last time with her. And then when she passed away that evening, I had asked you, do you want me to hold her or do you want to hold her? And then Darryl actually said, because I thought you were going to let me, because I wanted to hold her. He's like, no, I want to hold her. I was like, oh, shoot. But you held her, and you got to spend that moment with her before she passed too. So we each had our special moment with her, and
That's amazing.
yeah.
And yet, through all of this, you still have hope. How can you
Yes.
explain this? How can you explain this to me? How can you still have hope?
The hope is that we know that we're going to see her again.
And
It's not the end.
Yeah.
no.
It's not the end. And that's the hope that we hope that others can experience, that they know that, you know, when knowing Christ, you have that hope that if you've lost a child, that it's not the end. You're going to see them one day. And we think of her often. We have pictures of her. We thank God for her every day. And the lives she touched, it wasn't just our lives she touched so many other people's lives. And just so many people that showed up at her celebration of life just blew us away. There was like, I don't know how many, it was packed. And we knew that her little life made a difference in other people's lives. Even though she couldn't speak, she touched so many in a special way.
And and God's just been so precious to us through this time with how he's comforted us in ways that is so hard to explain. And I think there's just such a nearness of his presence to help us through places that people don't even want to talk about it. But he walked us through that and helped us figure that out as a couple to walk through that, and has kind of drawn us so close to him.
It's definitely changed our walk, our personal walks with Christ. Because you get to that point where you're reaching out to him more than you would within a normal life. You're constantly relying on him daily for strength, and when you see him meeting you where you're at, it's just there's just a love relationship that grows with him that never changes, even after she passed. It changed our whole lives, and in a positive way. It wasn't a negative experience. It was, in our humanistic mindset, we're like, how can you call that positive? But just the fact that we had such an incredible encounter with God through the journey, and continue to, and yeah.
I just wish I could encourage people, I don't know, when you think you can't, you think you're not doing what you should be. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but just he loved on her.
Yeah.
He loved on us when we had nothing, when we couldn't do anything. He, I think he knows our hearts. He knows what we need, even though we can't even say it. I can't even express the words of how desperate and how much we needed help. And he met us, and so, but he didn't require anything of us. He just
loved on us.
He just loved on us, and it's the same with Haley.
Yeah.
She couldn't do anything, yet we loved on her. We took care of her.
Oh, I wanted to share something.
And that's what he would do with anyone, no matter what. I think his love is just so immense that he will reach across any barrier, like you said. Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to bring out that was really hit me hard with Haley was our level of care that we did with her. Like, Haley couldn't toilet herself, and sometimes she would just be messy all from head to toe, and we would have to go in with a bucket and a washcloth and clean her, and it wasn't the most pleasant thing, but in the beginning you're complaining and you're mad at God and you're like, why have you given us this? What? And it came to a point, I think, later on as she was getting older that again we were surrendering. But I can remember times where during those moments it would be a time where Haley and I would worship. I wouldn't be frustrated, but I would be washing her and singing and just, let's worship Jesus together, Haley. And he really reminded me very much that as you do unto others, as you're washing her, you're ministering unto me. It's not you ministering unto Haley, you're ministering unto me, and it's an act of worship. Even as you're singing is an act of worship. And it was very precious, and it became special that we learned that our service to our daughter was serving Christ.
Wow.
And loving him. And I guess one of the things that really hits me too is we know that there are families out there today that have special needs children. And we know with this crazy COVID that a lot of them aren't getting their respite. And a lot of them are at the end of their rope, and they don't maybe know Christ. And they don't know the hope that we got to experience, and that he's there and he's waiting for them to reach them where they're at. And it's just a prayer away. God, just come into my life, and I surrender my situation to you. Would you come and meet me where I'm at, like you did with Darryl and Patty? And they can experience that incredible love. And that's our heart's cry, is that they would find that strength and that love and his presence like we did in our lives, in our journey. So, yeah.
So, Darryl and Patty, I just want to say thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing your story to not just Trevor and I, but to our church community. I think so many people are going to be watching this week and just be so touched by your story. I love how compassionate you guys are, and I think that Haley brought out that side in you. I know that Trevor and I have been blessed by you guys numerous times, and we are so glad that you're part of our Life Church community. You've been a blessing to us, and I know that God has used you to be a blessing to others. And so I just want to pray a blessing over your family and over Dawson, and just want to really reiterate and say thank you for sharing your story.
Thank you.
So let's pray. God, I am so thankful for the Jones. Thank you for bringing them into my life. Thank you for bringing them to Nanaimo, and thank you that they're part of our church community. And God, I just pray that even this week, as they go about their regular jobs, that you would just bless them in such an amazing way. We pray over Dawson. Thank you for his relationship with you. Thank you that you're still moving in their lives, that they're still loving you and have a heart after you. And so I pray, God, that you would continue to use them. I know that their journey isn't over, and I know that you have so much more in store for them. And so I just want to say thank you again for them, and we bless them in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Darryl and Patty, for sharing your story with us. And we do look forward to meeting Haley one day in heaven. And we are so thankful for your vulnerability, for your just the way you shared and encouraged us and encouraged others that are going through difficult times. You know, this is the thing. There's nobody that's life is perfect. And sometimes we can even go to church or work or school with someone and you just think that they've got it all together and they're this way, but you don't know their story. Hearing someone's story changes your perspective on them. And it is so neat to see how God has brought Darryl and Patty and Dawson through this incredible, difficult journey, and that how God has been so present and so amazing in their lives. We know that God is real and that He wants to work in people's lives. He doesn't want to just be a God out there somewhere. In fact, He wants to be really close. And He loved us so much that He sent Jesus to us. And so if you have any questions regarding Jesus or the Bible, or you want to know more about our church, please contact me. My email address is on our website, vilifechurch.com, under About, under Leadership. I'm there. I'd love to connect with you. Our church would love to connect with you. And so we want to thank you for showing up today. Thank you for being a part of our service. And we're really excited about what God is doing in people's lives in Nanaimo and in Canada. Today, I just want to share with you one very quick announcement. It's in regards to what's happening this evening, 6:30 p.m. There's VIPP, which is Vancouver Island Praise and Prayer. What is that? Well, it's an opportunity for churches, for people from churches to gather together to praise and to pray together. We're so excited about what God is doing in our city and the surrounding area, and we want God's kingdom to come and His will to be done in this area as it is in heaven. And so tonight, gathering online, obviously we all want to be in person at this stage, but we can't due to the restrictions. And so it's an opportunity. Their link is on their Facebook page. We'll have it on our Facebook page as well. But we want to let you know about that this evening. And we're excited about what God is doing in our city and in our country. And I know there's a real stirring and a rising in people's hearts to pray, to intercede for our government and for our people. And there's so many things that are going on in this world. And we want to just pray for our community and pray for the churches. And so I want to invite you to that. VIPP starts tonight, 6:30 p.m. Thanks so much for coming to our service today, or presentation. I don't even know what to call it. Our church online experience. And so thank you. Looking forward to what God's going to do in our hearts and lives this week. And I look forward to what God's going to do even next week and our next service. God bless.